Samuel Hamilton Walker writes to Sam Colt in Connecticut. He says, "Dear Colonel Colt, I desire to place an order for 1,000 of your revolvers." And Colt says, "Sure, I'll be happy to provide you these guns." And Walker says, "In 6 months, please." And that's when Colt starts to sweat. Colt went to Eli Whitney Jr. and said, "Can we do this?" Jr. said, "Yes." Eli said, "I think we now have all the machinery capable of turning out everything from springs to screws to frames." And he did. 1,000 guns were delivered to Walker, the first completed contract of firearms between the United States government and Colt Patent Firearms Manufacturing. 1847, 2014, a continuous, unbroken chain of manufacturing firearms for the military forces of this country, all because a Texas Ranger sent a letter to a guy he didn't know was bankrupt and out of business and asked for 1,000 pistols. That changed history because those Colts firearms became the first products in the history of mankind to be made in a factory where they were all assembled from identical, interchangeable parts. Just a few years later, Colt would travel to England, and at the Great Crystal Palace exhibition of 1851, in front of Prince Albert, the consort to Queen Victoria, he would take 9 of his revolvers, demonstrate that they all worked, have them taken apart down to their pins and screws, scraped into off the counter into a gunny sack, shook up, and then reassembled by aides and workers without regard to what gun had what part on it previously. And then he showed the audience that they all worked. The history of mankind that had never been demonstrated on that level before to any audience. Prince Albert was stupefied by this. And this begins the Industrial Revolution, the ability to mass produce. It gets us to a point where a year before Pearl Harbor, in December of 1940, Franklin Roosevelt goes on the air and he says to the American public, "Never before since Jamestown and Plymouth has our American civilization been in such danger as it is now.
We must be the great arsenal of democracy.
We must become the arsenal of democracy." It was a year before Pearl Harbor. And what happens in that next year? 5 million M1 Garands are made before the end of the war. 2.7 million 1911 A1s. 27,000 Liberty ships, 639,000 Jeeps, and 18,000 fighter aircraft. Not only do we keep, equip, and arm 16 million American servicemen during that war, but we arm all of our allies. We become the arsenal of democracy, and that's all due to Sam Walker, Eli Whitney Jr., and Sam Colt, the guys that knew how to make this stuff. We had a jump start on the Industrial Revolution because that's where it came from in firearms.